Bhakti-vedanta Narayan Gosvāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Gurudev ki jai. Nikhil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmad Śrīla Bhakti-vedanta Vaman Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Nikhil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmad Śrīla Bhakti-vedanta Swami Mahārāja Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Nikhil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Prajñāna Keśava Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Nikhil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nikhil Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Śrīla Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nikhil Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nikhil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Diva Gopal Patadashaguna Shara Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Prasad Vṛndā ki jai. Namachay Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vṛndā ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Vraja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishtapadat Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radhakun Shamakun ki jai. Shri Mona Devi, Ganga Devi ki jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani, Vṛndā Devi ki jai, Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vṛndā ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Gaur. Alright, so we are going to sing Vṛndā-devyāṣṭakam and Keśavāṣṭakam for Shri Keśava Vrat. Let me just share my screen with you. There. All right. There's nobody there yet, but anyhow, we'll just start. Okay. O Gangeya Champeya Tare. Sorry, wait, let me just make sure the sound is okay. O Gangeya Champeya Tare Dvinende Rochi Pravaha Snapitatma Vrinde Bandhu Kabandhu Duti Deva Vasa Vrinde Namaste Charanara Vendam Dimbadarode Paramanda Hasya Nasagramukta Duti Dipitase Vichitra Ratna Bharana Shriya Devrinde Namaste Charanara Vendam Samasta Vaikunta Shiro Manoshi Krishna Vrinda Vanatanya Dani Tattadhikare Vrishabhanu Putra Vrinde Namaste Charanara Vindam Tadagyaya Palava Pushpa Bringa Mrigadi Birma Tava Keli Kunja Madhvadi Bir Bhanti Vibhushamana Vrinde Namaste Charanara Vindam Tadiya Dutena Nekunjayuno Adyutkayo Keli Vilasa Siddhi Tvatsobhagam Kena Niruchatam Tad Vrinde Namaste Charanara Vindam Rasa Vilasho Vasatishta Vrindavane Tareshangri Saroja Seva Labhya Chapungsam Kripayata Vaiva Vrinde Namaste Charanara Vindam tam kirtase satvata tantra vir lila vidhana kila Krishna shaktis Davaiva murtis tulasi nirloke Vrinde namaste charanarvindam Bhaktya vihinaya paradalakshai Kshiptashtakamarditarangamarde Kripa mayitam sharanam prapanna Vrinde namaste charanarvindam Vṛndā-devyāṣṭakam ya śrīnuyat paterva Vṛndavanartishapadapya vṛnga Saprapya vṛndavananitavasam tat prema sevam labhate kritartha Vrinde namaste charanarvindam Vrinde namaste charanarvindam Jaya Vṛndā-devi Jaya Vṛndā-devi Vṛndā-devi Jaya Vṛndā-devi Jaya Tulsi Mahārāni Jaya Vṛndā-devi Tulsi Mahārāni Jaya Vṛndā-devi Nava priya kamanchare rachita karna purashiyam Vinidrataramalate kalita shekareno jvalam Tarochvasita yutika kratita valguvaikakshakam Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipinadeshata Keśava Vishangi manikastane Pranata shingi pingekshane Mridanga mukhi dhumale Shabaliham shivangshi priye Iti sasura vikula Karalamapayanta muda Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipinadeshata Keśava Kana pranayame turan Madhura narma goshti kala Dilasa nilayan milan Vivida vesha vedotina Sakina kila saraya Patishuhasayantam kira Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipinadeshata Keśava Shamambukanika vale Dharavilida gandantaram Samurag kiritatuve Likita charu pantankuram Udancharali mandale Duti vidam vivakralaka Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipinadeshata Keśava Nibadhanavatarnaka Valivilo kanotkantaya Natat kura putanchalar Alogobir puvam bindatin Kalena tabala ghatam Laghu nivartayantam pura Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipinadeshata Keśava Padankatati bhirvaram Virachayantamadvashiyam Chalattarala-naichiki Nichaya dulitum rasrajam Marula hari chanchale Krita dukola chudanchala Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipinadeshata Keśava Vilasa murali kala Dvani virula sanmanasa Kshanara kila vallavi pulakayantamantagrihe muhurvidadatam hride pramuditancha goshteshware vraje vijainam bhaje vipina deshata Keśava upetapati sundare tati virabhirabhyarchitam smitankurakaram pitar natarapangapam Keśadai stanastava sanchara nayana chanchari kanchala vraje vijainam bhaje vipina deshata Keśava idam nikila vallabe kula mahotsavo lasana kramena kila yapuman patati shushtupadashtakam tamojvaladiyam sada nijapadara Vṛndā-devyāṣṭakam ratem dadada chanchalam sukayatar vishakasaka vraje vijainam bhaje vipina deshata Keśava 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 ajaya Keśavādev 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 jaya Keśavādev jaya Keśavādev 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 jaya Keśavādev. Hari Bol, Jai Jai. Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna. So, oh, wait 1 second. Somebody sent me a message. Let me just... There, okay. So this article, today we're reading an article, Jīva-sevā and Jīve-dayā. Service to the Jiva and compassion on the Jiva by Śrīla Bhakti Prajñāna Keśava Gosvāmī Mahārāja, my Param Gurudev. Let me just take this mridanga off. All right, so this article I've actually never read before. Well, I mean, I haven't read it recently. I probably read it a long time ago, but so we're all reading it together for the first time. Is that supposed to be an M? I think so. Is that an L? Lost people? No, I think it must be an M, even though that does not look like an M. So, okay. Lost people are most people. It looks like an L. Okay, so lost people do not finely differentiate between the two words Jīva-sevā and Jīve-dayā. Usually, a person fails to properly understand the distinguishing characteristics of Jīva-sevā and Jīve-dayā, and therefore ends up with an understanding that is completely opposite to the truth. In this world, many people cherish the desire to be celebrated as a great thinker, magnanimous, benevolent, a well-wisher of the society, and a well-wisher of the world. But because such people do not properly understand the subject, the culmination of all their efforts is like the labor of animals. The people of the world are so engrossed in their bodily comforts and in fulfilling their selfish desires that even if a sense of an attitude to serve others is perceived in someone, it is greatly appreciated. Service to others, para-seva, is virtue. It's a virtue. However, if it becomes the deceiving of others, para-chalana, it can never be praiseworthy. Simply applying the label service, who's trying to call me? Right. 1 second. Okay. Sorry, let me start over again. Simply applying the label service to acts of deception and propagating them as service does not make them service in the true sense. Will the thoughtful and civilized human society of the 20th century not consider this fact just once? And the terms para-seva and para-upakar, the word para means topmost. In other words, it means, and upakar means like, what do you say? Doing beneficial acts for others. So serving others and working for the benefit of others. The word para means topmost. In other words, it means Paramatma Vishnu. Thus the word para refers only to service to Paramatma, the topmost entity. Okay, so para means others, but it also can mean topmost. And so in this sense, Param Gurudev says it's topmost. So the topmost sevas are also referring to Paramatma. So those are three meanings of the word para. Para can mean others, para can mean topmost, and para can mean Paramatma Vishnu. Thus the word para refers only to service to Paramatma, the topmost entity. In one sense, the jiva is also para, superior. However, as long as he has anarthas, he is bound by the three modes of nature. Yaya samohito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam paropi manute nartam tatkritam cha vipadyate. Srimad Bhagavatam 175. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. To render service to the jiva who has been conditioned from a time without beginning, whose consciousness is covered by the three modes of Maya, and who is distracted from his constitutional nature, is to render service to his condition plagued by anarthas. In other words, service is rendered to enable him to fulfill his enjoying propensity. Many considerations are inseparably tied to the concept of seva. First, one has to consider whether or not the entity to whom service is to be rendered is in fact sevya, an object worthy of worship. In other words, is he Prabhu Tattva, the supreme worshipable reality? Second, service entails pleasing the object of service in a manner that is favorable to him. And third, one must consider the state of consciousness of the servant, the sevak himself. Okay, so one, is a person worthy of worship? Two, is this actually something that's going to benefit the person being served? And three, what about the consciousness of the sevak himself? These are the three considerations. Is the jiva who has been averse to his constitutional nature and who has been covered by the three modes of material nature from a time without beginning, in fact, Prabhu Tattva? Will increasing the pleasure of one who possesses anarthas bring auspiciousness to him? And what benefit will the sevak, who is trying to bring pleasure to others, derive from these acts? By answering these questions in an impartial manner, we can observe that the term Jīva-sevā is itself not even illogical. The jiva is never Prabhu Tattva. Maya disha maya vasha ishvara jive bhed. Heno jive ishvara saha kohoto abhed. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 6.162. The Lord is the master of all potencies, and the living entity is their servant. That is the difference between the Lord and the living entity. However, you declare that the Lord and the living entities are one and the same. The terms Sevyabhiman, possessing the ego of being the object of service, Sevak Abhiman, possessing the ego of being the servant, and Seva Abhiman, possessing the ego of being one who renders service. What's the difference between Sevak, like in this word, possessing the ego of being the servant or being one who renders service? That's the same thing. I think, no, this should be translated as possessing pride that this is service. Having pride that this is service. So one is, I think so, yeah. So these terms, Sevyabhiman, Sevakabhiman, and Seva Abhiman, are meaningless if they are used in relation to one who is bound by Maya, and if they are put into practice by offering that person sense enjoyment. To render service to debauchees, thieves, cheaters, donkeys, horses, trees and creepers, etc., is nothing but supplying sense gratification, sense enjoyment, to jivas who are bound by Maya. None of these entities is Sevya or Prabhutattva. A debauchee and a thief are both bound by Maya. It is true that service to them by furnishing them with sense enjoyment. However, it is also true that these persons will achieve only perpetual inauspiciousness, and by their association, other jivas will surely suffer as well. Rendering service to a jiva bound by Maya, that is providing him with sense enjoyment, however, however well it may be dressed up, results only in the suffering of other jivas. This is because trying to satisfy the senses of a particular jiva bound by Maya results in inauspiciousness for that jiva, as well as in suffering for many other jivas. In regard to jivas who are in the stage of bondage, the term Jīva-sevā, service to living entities, does not apply. Yet the term Jīve-dayā, compassion upon other entities, is credible. And in relation to jivas who are in the liberated stage, Vaishnava-sevā is possible. Sorry, I started getting bad at reading all of a sudden. And in relation to jivas who are in the liberated stage, Vaishnava-sevā is possible. But acting for the satisfaction of the jiva in his bound stage, while he still has anarthas, cannot be termed real seva. Only compassion, doya, can be shown to such a person. Moreover, we cannot show doya to a liberated soul, a mukta purush, someone to whom we should render service. The term Jīva-sevā is irrational, but the terms Guru-sevā, Vaishnava-sevā, and Shiva-sevā are completely reasonable. To render service to or please the senses of Guru and the Vaishnavas is essential. To serve those who are liberated from this world and to show compassion towards those who are bound to it are indeed Shuddha Sanatan Dharma, are the jiva's unalloyed eternal occupation. The jiva bound by Maya is not Prabhu, master. In other words, he is not Sevya Tattva, the supreme worshipable reality. He's not meant to, okay, whatever. Many who hear this conception will reveal their loyalty to the opinion of the bowels, one of the Sahajya sects, in their attempts to deceitfully so many will hear this conception will reveal their loyalty to the opinion of the bowels, in their attempt to deceitfully present the jivas as Sevya Tattva, and to thus try to proclaim the conditioned souls to be Narayan. Those who follow the incorrect conception of the bowels consider the state of Lord Narayan, who is the controller of Maya, to be the same as the state of those jivas who are bound by Maya. Thus the name living entities, Jiva Narayan, living entity Narayan, and Daridra Narayan, poor Narayan, Ashva Narayan, horse Narayan, Mriga Narayan, deer Narayan, Manusha Narayan, human Narayan, and so forth. They preach that the satisfaction of two mundane objects, the body and mind, is indeed service to Narayan. The terms Daridra Narayan, Manusya Narayan, and so forth are as illogical and dishonest as saying, my clay pot is made of gold. Simply adding the names Narayan or Ishvar to the name of a Jiva cannot convert that Jiva into Prabhu Tattva. Rather, it makes him a hypocrite. Yastu Narayan Devam Brahma Rudra Didaivatai Samatvenaiva Viksheta Sapashandi Bhave Dhruvam. Hari Bhakti Vilas 117. An atheist, a Pashandi, is one who considers great demigods such as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva to be equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan. Sriman Mahaprabhu declares, Jai Mura Kohe Jiva Ishwar Hoya Sama, Sheto Pashandi Hoy Dande Tare Jama. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 18:115. A foolish person who says that the Supreme Controller is the same as the living entity is an atheist, a Pashandi, and he becomes subject to punishment by Yamaraj, the superintendent of death. Daridatva, the state of poverty, is not the same as Narayanatva, the state of being Bhagavan, Prabhu Tattva. Rather, the state of poverty is completely devoid of Narayanatva. A deer and a human are not the controllers of Maya. Rather, they are controlled by Maya. Narayan is constantly situated as the indwelling supersoul within the poor, within the animals, and within humans. However, the poor, the animals, and the humans cannot be regarded as Narayan. The external covering of Maya leads one to perceive a living entity as poor, as an animal, or as an... The external covering of Maya leads one to perceive a living entity as poor, as an animal, or as a human. Only when this covering and the influence of Maya's throwing potency are dispelled can one clearly witness the real existence of the indwelling witness, Narayan, and the eternal nature of the pure Jivatma, who is an Angsha, or a part of Narayan. Guru and Vaishnavas are not affected by the influence of the external potency of Narayan. Therefore, they are liberated, they are mukta, they are pure, shuddha, and eternal, nitya. To render constant service to them is indeed the jiva's eternal engagement. Guru and Vaishnavas are not in the category of ordinary jivas. As long as a jiva is seen to be conditioned, it is obligatory to show him compassion. And when a jiva is seen to be liberated, it is necessary to serve him. Mahabhagavats look upon all with an equal vision. Mahabhagavats look upon all with equal vision, a cow, a horse, an ass, and a dog-eater. And they see everyone as a Vaishnav. With this knowledge, they engage in rendering service to everyone. In their vision, they do not imagine or impose transcendence upon mundane phenomena. For instance, they do not see the poor as Narayan, humans as Narayan, or the deer as Narayan. This is the misconception of the Baals or the Mayavadis. Mahabhagavats do not imagine the Jivatma to be Narayan. Therefore, they do not render transitory service to the covering of Maya or to the phenomena of the mundane body and mind, which is nothing but the transformation of Maya's throwing potency. Their seva is eternal, and their ego as a servant of Bhagavan is also eternal. What depth of knowledge and intelligence do those persons possess who create chaos in the name of Jīva-sevā, or imagine that service to Daridra Narayan, poor Narayan, human Narayan, and dear Narayan is real service, and in doing so try to establish themselves as great benevolent religious leaders and philanthropists before the ignorant masses of the world? Thoughtful people can easily see through this. However, these fashionable arguments can weaken even wise thinkers within human society and cause them to be deluded by these ordinary matters. Sri Bhagavat, the Srimad Bhagavatam, does not mention anything about Jīva-sevā. Its message is to render service unto Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas, and have compassion upon the conditioned souls. Not serve the conditioned souls, but have compassion for them. In the example of King Bharat, Sri Bhagavat shows us that the great Rishi Bharat brought obstacles to his own path of self-realization and to his supreme auspiciousness by serving a jiva in the conditioned state who had the body of a deer. By denouncing such Jīva-sevā, Sri Bhagavat informs us of the conceptions of devotees who are Madhyam and Uttam Bhagavats. Ishwareta dadhineshu balisheshu dishachucha prema maitri kripo peksha ya karoti samadhyama. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.46. A Madhyam Bhagavat is one who loves Ishvar, is friendly towards his bhaktas, shows mercy towards those who are ignorant of bhakti, and neglects those who are inimical to Ishvar or his bhaktas. That's Madhyam Bhagavat. And now this is Uttam Bhagavat. Sarva bhuteshu yapasher bhagavar bhavam atmana bhutani bhagavatyatma nesho bhagavatottama. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.45. One who sees his own Bhagavad Bhav, his ecstatic mood of attraction towards Sri Krishna Chandra, and the hearts of all jivas, Sarva bhuteshu, and sees all beings within Krishna Chandra, is an Uttam Bhagavat. Stavara jangama deke na deke tara murti sarvatra hoy nija ishta deva spurti sarvatra hoy nija ishta seva. 1 second. Whatever. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 8.274. The Mahabhagavat certainly sees everything that is moving and non-moving, but he does not exactly see their forms. Rather, wherever he looks, he sees the manifestation of the form of his most worshipful Lord. A Madhyam Adhikari Vaishnav should render service to one who is an Uttam Adhikari, and he should do so for the Uttam Adhikari's happiness and satisfaction. The Madhyam Adhikari Vaishnav should care for him in every respect, even rendering menial service to him. But he should not try to satisfy the senses of conditioned souls, because by this he will gain no eternal welfare or auspiciousness, either for himself or for others. We have to always keep in mind that when the Atma's eternal relationship with Krishna is awakened, the sole object of the Atma's eternal function, which is service, seva, is Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas. The sole object of the Jiva's eternal function is Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas. And that eternal function is to serve them, serve Sri Hari. In other words, service should be rendered to the independent, pure form of Bhagavan in Vaikuntha, Bhagavat Sarup, and to Bhagavan's expansions, Tad Rupa Vaibhav, but not to the bound jivas or to the external energy, Pradhan. Because we have forgotten our Sarup and lack transcendental intelligence, the service we perform with the body and mind is synonymous with enjoyment based on gratifying the mundane senses. The object of such service is not Bhagavan and his expansions. Rather, it is the conditioned soul and the material energy. Neither of these is a pure conscious entity of Vaikuntha. Presently, the consciousness of the conditioned soul is averse to Krishna. To redirect that consciousness toward Krishna is to show the jiva the highest form of compassion. Jīva-sevā is never possible. In other words, the function of the jiva's transcendental senses can never be used to provide sense pleasure to the conscious entities who are covered by non-reality or ignorance. Rather, the function of his transcendental senses is to constantly be engaged in executing service for the pleasure of Ishvar, the Lord of the entire consciousness and non-conscious creation, and to his consort Ishvari. This is a fact. The terms Jīve-dayā and Vaishnav-sevā are logical and bestow supreme auspiciousness. Sriman Mahaprabhu displayed the ideal of this Jīve-dayā and Vaishnav-sevā. By performing kirtan of Bhagavan's glories, Amando Daya Daya, our pure compassion which never diminishes at any point in time and which never gives negative results, is shown to an unlimited number of bound jivas. And by rendering service to the Vaishnavas who are performing kirtan in a way that is favorable in every respect, the soul's function fully awakens. This is an important term, Amando-daya-daya. It's pure compassion which never diminishes at any point in time and which never gives negative results. By personally preaching Bhagavad Katha from village to village, and by engaging his devotees as preachers, Mahaprabhu presented the example of Amando-daya-daya. Furthermore, he also demonstrated the ideal of service to Vaishnavas, who are constantly engaged in kirtan. We have to always remember that if we transgress the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and Srimad Mahaprabhu by becoming engrossed in modern opinions born of mental speculation, we will in fact be deceived of service to Bhagavan. After hearing a lengthy discourse on Jīva-sevā, we should not go on to become Mayavadis, Bauls, Prakrita Sahajas, or Chid-jada Samanyavadis, persons who equate transcendence with worldliness, and thus deviate from the genuine path. May Jīve-dayā and Vaishnav-sevā be our sole ideal. May Jīve-dayā, Name-ruchi, and Vaishnav-sevā be our sole guiding principles. May compassion on the jivas and having taste for Sri Harinam and serving the Vaishnavas be our sole guiding principles. Translated from Sri Gaura Patrika 5/4, 1964. Oh, that's year 15, issue 4. 1964. This is a really important topic. I remember once, let me see if there are any comments. 1 second. Okay. Now this reminds me of something. When I was traveling with Damodar Maharaj, and this was in 2006, and we went to Australia, and I was washing his clothes. And then he said something to me. He said, or maybe he was saying in class, I can't remember, but I heard the point that we should only serve pure Vaishnavas. We shouldn't serve any other person. And so then he asked me, he's like, so are you doing service to me? And I thought, well, yeah, I am. And then he made the point, no, this isn't, because he's doing a service for Gurudev, and I'm helping him in that service to Gurudev. So in that way, everything I'm doing, I shouldn't be serving him. He's not the object of the service. My object of service is Gurudev, is Krishna. And so I'm helping them in their service to Gurudev, so that way I'm actually serving Gurudev, not serving that person. So really, we shouldn't serve any conditioned soul, but we should. But yeah, that term Amando-daya-daya, that means having compassion which doesn't diminish at any time and which it has no bad effect. It's only pushing people towards establishing them in their own service to Krishna. That is real compassion. Anyhow. Okay. So that means we can still, we still do things for others, but we should always be thinking about how to be pushing them towards coming to bhakti, not just trying to help people, because the only real way to actually help somebody is to turn them towards getting out of this samsara, out of this cycle of birth and death, and always trying to please yourself and thinking myself the controller. The only way to actually help anybody in the true sense is to turn them towards bhakti. That's the only thing that has eternal benefit, which doesn't diminish. Amanda doya doya. Compassion which doesn't diminish at any point. All right. Trying to think of a melody. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Guru Gandharvika Giridhari, Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki Jai, Nitil Pavishto Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosvāmī Mahārāja Shila Gurudev ki Jai, Nitil Pavishto Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki Jai, Nitil Pavishto Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Mahārāja Shila Prabhupada ki Jai, Nitil Pavishto Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishmad Shila Bhakti Prajñāna Keśava Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki Jai, Nitil Pavishto Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishmad Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosvāmī Prabhupada ki Jai, Nitil Pavishto Mahābhagavat Shila Gorkshara Babaji Mahārāja ki Jai, Nitil Pavishto Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Mahārāja ki Jai, Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai, Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jīva-Gopal Patadash Raghunath, Sharda Gosvāmī Prabhu ki Jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari, Shri Gaur Parshad Vṛndā ki Jai, Namachay Shila Haridas Thakur ki Jai, Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vṛndā ki Jai, Shri Kshetra Mandala, Gaura Mandala, Vraja Mandala, Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki Jai, Sarva Abhishya Bharata Giriraj Maharaj ki Jai, Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki Jai, Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki Jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vṛndā-devyā ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Devi ki Jai, Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki Jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vṛndā ki Jai, Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vṛndā ki Jai, Shri Nitai Gaura-purnima, Hari Hari Bol. Vṛndāya Tulsi Devaya, Priyaya Keśavāṣṭakam, Krishna Bhakti Padadevi, Satyavataya Namo Namaha. Vansha Kalpatarubhyashta, Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavad Pranams. Yeah, so I'm just thinking about that. Jīve-dayā. So we don't just give food to the poor. We don't just give, we're not giving tons of, but we offer it and give them prasad. And then by taking that prasad, then they develop sukriti and they'll come in contact with the Vaishnav at some time, or they'll come in contact with the holy name again, or with the scriptures or something. So that's why it's not that we don't help people. We definitely help them. That's helping people is what happens. When you have compassion for somebody, then you want to help them. So we help them, but we're not just trying to help them in a material sense, but only in a way that brings them, that helps them in a spiritual way. So if you want to do something good for somebody, then, and I think just in everyday life, if you're, because we do help people in other ways that might not just be devotional, but we can just slip something devotional in there. We can say Hare Krishna to them or something, and they hear the Maha Mantra. But we should always, we're not trying to serve anybody, but the objects of service. The objects of service are only Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, and the Vaishnavas. They're the only objects of service. We don't serve any other person. We don't want to give our hearts to any other. When you serve somebody, you're also making a relationship with that person, and in a way, you're giving a part of your heart to somebody when you're really serving them from your heart. But if you give your heart to any person who's not a Vaishnava, then you'll be disappointed at some point in time. But if we give our hearts to those who are completely fixed in the service of Bhagavan, then they'll never disappoint you. You'll never, and so that's why also something I've learned is that I only want to really truly serve Mahabhagavats. I only want to give my heart to Mahabhagavats, because otherwise, if I give my heart to any other person, like Srila Bhaktivedanta Bharati Goswami Maharaj, he gave this example. I've mentioned it before, but he gave this example. There's a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Krishna Surya Sam Maya Hoy Andakar. And I can't remember the second part of that verse. But Krishna is the sun, and Maya is darkness. And around what's going around the sun, there's all these different planets and all these different things. Everything other than the sun, it's all like spinning around constantly, orbiting around the sun. And so it's never fixed, it's never peaceful. It's always like and so but the Vaishnava is completely attached to Bhagavan. They're with Bhagavan. And so they're on the sun, which is fixed. And so they're completely peaceful. What is it? He also quoted another verse. Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Ataeva Shanta. Siddhi Bhukti Mukti is not. Siddhi Bhukti something Kami Sakali Ashanta. Only the Vaishnavas are actually peaceful. Because they have no material desires. They're completely fixed on Bhagavan. But anybody else in this world, the bhukti, those wanting enjoyment, those wanting liberation, those who are trying to attain some mystic yoga perfection, and everybody else is not peaceful. And so if we serve anybody else, if we give our heart to anybody else who's not a pure Vaishnava, completely attached to Bhagavan, then we'll never be peaceful. We'll just be spinning around. And I've definitely learned this the hard way. I've gone through a lot of purification, giving my heart to somebody who's not a Mahabhagavat, who's not Gurudev. And so that doesn't mean that we don't help other people, we don't serve them, but we do it because they're connected to Bhagavan. We're not giving our hearts to them. We're giving our hearts because this is my Gurudev's servant, so I'm helping him because of his connection to Gurudev. So this is my service to Gurudev. But that person who isn't a Mahabhagavat isn't the object of service himself or herself. Yeah, thanks for letting me blab on like that. I'm not very articulate, but anyways, thank you. Jai Shri Radhe. See you. Thank you for that, Jai Jai. So Krishna is compared to sunshine, and Maya is compared to darkness. Wherever there is sunshine, there cannot be darkness. As soon as one takes to Krishna consciousness, the darkness of illusion, the influence of the external energy, will immediately vanish. Yes. Okay. All right. Dandavat pranams. Oh, and I just see this now. Chair is asking, how is it spelled? Are we talking about Vṛndā-devyāṣṭakam? Vṛndā-devyāṣṭakam is Amando, Amando, Daya-Daya. It's Vṛndā-devyāṣṭakam is Amanda, which means bad or which means diminishing, and Uday means rising. So it rises out of it's and then Daya means compassion. So it means oh God. Anyways, I'm not good at doing this stuff on the fly. Anyhow, Vṛndā-devyāṣṭakam. It is compassion arising from something that doesn't diminish, that doesn't and that doesn't have any negative consequence. It only gives benefit, good fortune. Eternal good fortune. Okay, I'm gonna end it now. Hari Bol. Jai Shri Radhe.